you are.
Okay. You got it?
Yes, we got it.
Yay.
So Anahita is a good girlfriend of mine, but I have to do her justice and read just her short bio for those of you that don't know her. So Anahita Sedaghatfar is an attorney and television legal analyst and commentator who regularly appears on Fox News, The O'Reilly Factor with Bill O'Reilly, Studio B with Shepard Smith, America's Newsroom, Happening Now, Your World with Neil Cavuto, and Cavuto on Fox Business Network. Anahita also appears on various shows on CNN, HLN, and True TV, including Dr. Jerome Paul, The Nancy Grace Show, The Les Mitchell Show, and In Session. Ms. Sedaghatfar has been extensively interviewed and quoted in a multitude of print and online publications, including Fox News, E! Entertainment, Huffington Post, and Yahoo News. In 2015, Anahita joined the prestigious Cochran firm in California, of course, founded by the legendary Johnny Cochran, to serve as counsel for the firm. Ms. Sedaghatfar has successfully represented both employers and employees with respects to lawsuits brought under the Fair Employment and Housing Act. She has counseled employees and companies regarding compliance and labor with employment laws and investigations of discrimination claims. In the entertainment realm, Ms. Sedaghatfar has experience with contract drafting, review and negotiations for professional athletes, independent filmmakers, actors, film distributor companies, prominent record labels, and musicians. Throughout her career, Ms. Sedaghatfar has performed various pro bono services for indigent clients and members of the California Lawyers for the Arts. In addition to maintaining her law practice, Anahita is an adjunct professor at Southwestern University School of Law and was admitted to practice in the state of Bar of California in 2001 and is a part of the Beverly Hills Bar Association. So with that being said, super excited to have her on the call. I first just want to thank you for doing this. She's super busy. You would think with the COVID, an attorney is like just kind of like chilling at home in the bed. Nope, we're still doing, I'm a lawyer too. I'm still doing depositions from home. I'm still on calls. I'm still, your life doesn't stop just because you're not in the office. So a lot of times people kind of had a vacation when COVID hit. They kind of got sent home and they didn't really have to do much and they were paid. Lawyers, we kind of take our job with us. No matter where we are. It doesn't matter. It doesn't really matter where we are. So with that being said, we did have a couple of questions. I mentioned to them, I'm obviously a lawyer, but I'm bringing you on because you obviously have a wealth of experience. And anyway, the first question that was submitted from the audience was, what was your number one motivator to decide to become a lawyer?
I actually decided I wanted to be an attorney when I was like about 12 or 13 years old, and I really didn't even know what that meant. I had a neighbor who was a very, very good friend of mine, and her father was one of those big tobacco industry, actually defense lawyers. And during one of these like field trips, he allowed some of us to go with him to court. This was when I was living up north in San Francisco. And I just remember seeing him get up there before the federal judge, and he just kind of took the podium and started making his oral arguments. And I think from that point on, I was like, this is what I want to do. I want to be an attorney. It wasn't obviously until later on that I realized I wanted to do civil rights litigation and actually represent victims of discrimination and sexual harassment. But I think my first real inclination to get interested in the law was watching my friend Emily's father make his oral argument in the federal court. It had an impact on me and I was sold. And everyone always said growing up that I loved to argue and I had a big mouth and I was always playing kind of like devil's advocate. But, like Nadine, who was on a little bit earlier, I, grew up in a Persian, very traditional household. So it was kind of one of those things where it's a lawyer or an architect. But luckily it was something that I did want to do and I had a passion for. So,
I did this for the doctor, so I'll do this for the lawyer. What is the best piece of advice getting into law school, and then once you're there, surviving law school? So let's start with getting into law schools, because there are a couple of people on the call that are interested in obviously attending law school at some point, or maybe are even applying now. I
think the best advice I can say is, for me, I knew that was what I wanted to do. So I took all the pre-law courses I could take when I was in undergrad. Like it was one of those, okay, you can either do political science or sociology. That's what kind of I was told. But I did take some, other classes that were sort of outside. I did some international communications courses, and I would start looking into the law schools I was interested in. And a lot of times, I don't know if they still do this because this was a while ago for me, the law school websites would have lists of courses that they recommended or that they liked their undergrad applicants to have. So that was something I looked at, and I treated it like a job. I mean, from the first year that I entered college, having that goal of wanting to go to law school, I did everything I needed to do to get to that goal.
Mm-hmm. And again, right, again, and I'm not sure if they still do that in terms of like kind of telling you, but I will say, yeah, I mean, most people, I just tell people that the go-to is like political science, or my college, they call it sociology, or government. They call it government, but it was political science, or and to be honest with you, here's the gag about what she's just talking about undergrad. So technically in law school, you can major in anything and apply to law school. So you can technically major in music and apply to law school. So there's really no mandatory undergrad. And in fact, the students, maybe not necessarily the best lawyers. So I'll put that caveat out there. But the people that do the best in law school are actually, believe it or not, math majors and engineering majors. They've done a study. And the reason why is, again, and this is not saying they're the best lawyers, because that's a conversation for a second, in terms of just because you're good in law school doesn't mean you're going to be a great lawyer. It takes a certain sort of personality. But the reason why they were so great is because they knew how to put things together and take things apart. You have to have a math and engineering mind to know how to logically work their way back from a result and put things together. And as a lawyer, you're constantly solving problems. That's why it's that stupid games section on the LSAT that you're looking at, because you're like, why am I doing a game section on the LSAT? It's because they're having you solve problems, because that's what you're ultimately doing. And so with that being said, engineering and math majors tend to do the best in terms of grades and doing well, because they already have that mindset. So I say that all to say that obviously if you can try to study like history or government or political science or whatever, those are kind of like the go-tos. But even if you're like in math or engineering or something that just shows your logic and how you can solve problems, I think that would be helpful. Now, let's just say someone survives the LSAT, they get the recommendation letters, which are really important because they're looking for a real well-rounded student. A lot of times people are like, well, how did I get into Princeton, but I didn't get into this school? Or how did I, they don't understand, because they're looking for a profile. So if, for example, if there's another Black girl from DC that played the violin that studied political science and they let her in first before me, then they may just put me on the wait list. Not because they don't like me, but they already have someone just like me that they've already accepted before me. They're looking for a class profile. So you may not get into certain schools, not because you're not good enough, but because they already have that profile. So
they know what those profiles will be for each incoming class as well. I mean, I definitely think it's true. So the more you can kind of make yourself stand out. And also I applied to a ton of law schools. I wasn't set on one. I applied to like 30 law schools out of the state, in the state, so that you have options. But I definitely think you're right. You need to do things to sort of show that you're well-rounded, extracurricular activities, other interests you have other than just like how good you are at academics. I didn't know about the math and engineering though. That's the first I've heard.
It was a study some time ago. I learned that, and I was like, I kind of recall this guy again. I was like, he's like the most fantastic attorney, but he knew he got like the best grades because he was just really good at pulling things apart and doing that, because he kind of had that math training. It kind of it reminded me of him. I don't know where he is now, but it just kind of reminded me of that. With that being said, okay, let's just pretend we're in law school. How do you survive if you're kind of struggling? Maybe you're not doing as well as you want in certain subjects. You have to. A lot of people don't know this. If you get into law school, I think isn't it like a B minus, Anahita? If you go below that in the GPA or something, you can't continue on. They kick you out of law school.
Yeah,
they have to have a certain GPA just to go. So it's not like college where you can just get D's and just
you can even like cruise. Exactly.
No, if you don't make a certain GPA, they actually kick you out of law school.
Yeah.
So you speak to like kind of your first year, which to me is the hardest year, because that's where you have all your core courses, like what you should do if maybe you're struggling.
I mean, it's tough. I have to say it's not a walk in the park. At least it wasn't for me. I knew some students who it was easy for them. They didn't study that much and they were able to sit in class and be able to participate. For me, I was a studier. And like I said, I treated law school like a job. I mean, I was in class from like 7 to 3. I would take about an hour or so break for lunch just to kind of relax and maybe head to the library or head back to my place and just study. I mean, it would be 12 to 13-hour days. And especially in the first year, like you said, that is really the most critical year because you do have to maintain a certain GPA or they will kick you out. So I found for me just treating it like a very structured job because I told myself, I'm going to do it once. I'm going to do it the best possible way I can do it. For me, I was really motivated by trying to get academic scholarships. Law school is not cheap. And I mean, getting the loans, everyone knows what a pain in the butt that is. So that was a huge motivating factor for me was to be able to maintain academic scholarships. And to do that, you have to get a certain GPA. So I literally remember just making this almost a career. And it was the entire first year. I think I might have gone out maybe 1 or 2 times. My weekends, my evenings, my early mornings were spent studying. And like I said, for me, that was the key to my success. I was able to make law review and get more scholarships my second year and then my third year where I pretty much got a free ride. So again, just it depends on how you can, the best you can study. For me, treating it like a job, being very regimented. And also, I don't know, Jay, you probably know as well, a lot of people formed like study groups where you would share outlines.
Yeah,
And
outlines. Yeah.
that never worked for me. Like for me, I was a better studier when I was just by myself in my own zone. But for a lot of people, study groups were the key to law school. They would share outlines, they would discuss the cases, they would study together. So it really depends on what works best for you, but nothing ever replaces just studying your ass off and putting in the work.
Yeah, knowing the information. And I think that goes to say the same thing, and I won't go too much into it, but with the bar exam, it's the same thing. You graduate from college. Like, here's the thing. It's not like you're not going to recognize the questions. You've been in law school for 3 years. So you're going to recognize. People like, come on, like, oh my God. I'm like, no, you'll recognize the questions. It's just that you've got to treat this like your job for at least a solid 60 days. Get with, like, if you're not good with groups, like sometimes I feel like studying, I'm not good with groups. Get just a one-on-one bar coach if you're not good in a group setting, like a Kaplan or something. And this goes for everything. MBA, you're looking to go to med school. We had Dr. Anahita from the Doctor Show yesterday. She said the same thing. You just have to, like you said, figure out what works for you and really learn what they're looking for in these standardized tests and just eat, drink, and sleep it until you can get through it. I mean, it's not going to be the rest of your life. Like, you give up 2 months of your life to study for the LSAT to get in law school. You give up 2 months of your life to pass the bar so you can be a licensed attorney. You just kind of have to just sit down and do it, to be honest with you.
My friends would be like, oh my God, what are you doing? You're missing the best time of your life. We're in our early 20s. We should be going out and traveling and going to concerts. And I just remember thinking that there's no better sacrifice because ultimately, I mean, this is a career. No one can ever take your law degree from you. Especially us being women and then being women of color, I think that makes it that much more critical for us to have something that we can always fall back on. Like, this is a degree is something that no one can ever take away from you when push comes to shove. I mean, a lot of my friends now are married and they stopped working. They're starting to have children and they, have their husbands supporting them. And that's great and dandy, but, just having this degree, I think is just for me has been not only something I'm so proud of because obviously of the work that I get to do and the people that I get to help, but also it's a sense of security that I think, you will have for a lifetime.
Right.
And that's been something that I've been kind of taught and it's been ingrained in me from the time I was a child to always be able to have something that you can always take care of yourself with. And that's what the degree represents to me. So no, I don't regret missing out on going to vacations and doing all those.
Because you can always go on vacation. Those things, like in the few months you're studying,
yeah.
What I did was I went to Costa Rica. That was my trip. I was like, once I take the bar, then I'm going to go on a vacation.
Then you can do it. Yeah.
Right. So it's not to say that you can never go, but I think there's just a time and place for everything. So whether you're interested in going to law school or not, like I said, some of the people on this Zoom event, wanted to go to maybe med school, or again, we're interested in other careers that we've highlighted, it really doesn't matter what it is. If it requires some sort of degree, you have to study, you have to put in the work. With that being said, there are some people still left on the call that are interested in TV. So obviously, we spoke to Nadine about kind of like the reality world and hosting and producing and things like that. What can you tell our group about just how to transition to TV? I mean, you're obviously coming on as an expert legal. Dr. Anita from the Doctor Show, she pitched herself kind of like as a medical expert and told us that. Can you tell us a little bit about your journey of just, again, being a lawyer, and then all of a sudden you're thrusted on TV, and you're this lawyer on TV. What was your first experience like, and how you got that experience?
I actually have done the Doctor's Show. I've come on as a legal expert.
Okay, so you know Dr. Anita. Okay.
Yeah, I know her. She's awesome. Another kick-ass woman. For me, it wasn't even something that I was looking to do. It was just, I was in a court one day. This was probably about 5 or 6 years ago. And I had an oral argument. It was a demur hearing, and the courtroom was packed. And as I finished the oral argument, whatever, did my thing, walked out, and this man comes out of the courtroom, and he's like, "Excuse me, can I ask you, like, how long have you been an attorney? I think you did such a good job, blah, 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 whatever." So I'm thinking, oh, he's just like a perv or whatever. But it ends up, he's like, "Well, have you ever thought about doing television?" And I thought, television? Like, no, I'm not an actor. And
right.
No interest in that. And he said no. So long story short, he was a producer at Fox News Channel, and he was there for a case with his attorney. And he was the executive producer of the Bill O'Reilly Show, which is canceled now, as you know. But he said, let me get your card, and I'll give you a call. And I said, okay, whatever. So I gave him my card, and I left. I didn't even, ask for his information.
Okay.
And he called me that next day. And the following day, I did my first hit. They called me to cover, I don't even remember what it was. It was like a murder case. Some mother killed her children, and they wanted an attorney to come talk. And so they called me up, and I had never watched Fox News. I had never really watched much of any news at that time because I was so focused with my work, and brought me on, and I went on air, and it was a live segment, and I absolutely loved it. I found it to be just so, it was a different kind of thing than law. It was a challenge. And from there, other producers on some of the other shows watched, and they started emailing me, and I then got on CNN and HLN and ABC, and just, it kind of just happened for me that. And best thing that's ever happened to me, not only in terms of, boosting my brand, getting my name out there. It's gotten me a ton of cases, just being, on TV, people, millions of viewers watching you. It grew my business. It grew my law practice. And I also found that it sort of gives you more credibility in the eyes of like the defense lawyers you're going up against.
Right, because they're like, that's Anahita from, Fox News or CNN. Look, if you guys have not watched Anahita, she tells these people off, okay? If she believes something is like not right, she's like, no, this is what it is, right? So, yeah, you probably have built a reputation. So if they go to the court, they're like, oh my gosh, Anahita Sedaghatfar, okay,
here she is. She's
here
a big
she comes. But it does grow your brand. It grows your brand.
It does, and it's also helped me. I've gotten, I would say, much larger amounts in my settlements on my cases for the victims that I represent because I do have the platform. So I always have the ability to say to, the perpetrator or whoever we're suing, whoever it may be, that look, you do the right thing, or I will hold a press conference and media will show up, or I will take this to CNN. I mean, especially if it's a topic of public concern. My passion has really been like the Me Too movement and sort of suing people that have victimized my female clients, whether it's sexual assault, sexual harassment. So it's just been really a game changer for me. And for a little small point in time, I thought about maybe transitioning to doing television full time, and I had some opportunities to do that, but I could never just give up the practice of law. I don't think I could ever give it up. So
you're the best at what you do. Anahita has helped me with some things. I mean, you're really the best at what you do. Like, I look at you as kind of like the template of what you should be doing as, again, a really like engaging, actively participating attorney. And I think whether you want to go to law school or not, or be an attorney or not, I think she just dropped some gems about if you're on this call and you're interested in growing your brand, if you can get on TV, I don't care what you're doing. You could be selling makeup. You could be an expert in law, medicine, whatever. As you can see, she went to law school. Dr. Anahita went to, they don't have to be on TV if they don't really want to. They have careers without TV, but how it's grown their brand and it's given them credibility. So, you know, whether it's hosting, reality TV, even though, you know, Nadine kind of warned us about being reality TV. But if you can do it the right way, you know, it's a very powerful platform. So like I said, every single woman that I interviewed has been on TV.
Yeah.
Every single one of you guys. And I purposely did that because a lot of people are interested in entertainment that attended this panel and wanted to know. And so I wanted people to see different types of people on TV and how, you know, again, you don't necessarily have to be on a reality show. You can host. You can just be a correspondent. But if you can get on television in some form or fashion, your brand can really explode. And your whatever business you have, it'll trickle down in that. And, you know, you can be really successful.